Which choice best describes the overall structure of the text? The North Celestial Pole (NCP), the fixed point around which stars in the northern hemisphere, including the Sun, appear to rotate, is discernible only at night. Inspired by the navigational strategies of some insects and birds, researchers devised a method for locating the NCP in daytime using skylight polarization, which occurs as atmospheric particles scatter sunlight. A polarimetric camera captures images of polarization patterns which rotate as the sun's position in the sky changes. Temporal variances across images can then be used to determine an observer's latitude and bearing relative to the NCP. So the text highlights how there's this fixed point around which stars rotate, known as the NCP, and that scientists were inspired by the navigational strategies of insects and birds to help devise a method to locate the NCP in daytime, and they did so through skylight polarization, which occurs as atmospheric particles scatter sunlight. And so then they developed a polarimetric camera that captures images of polarization patterns, and then this helps the user to determine the observer's latitude and the bearing relative to the NCP. So that's the overall structure of the text. Now let's look at the answer choices. A. It illustrates how most navigational tools utilize the NCP. It recounts how researchers discovered that certain animals are able to navigate without using the NCP, and then proposes that this discovery could be used to avoid problems in navigation associated with reliance on the NCP. So this is incorrect because, to begin with, it doesn't begin by discussing how most navigational tools utilize the NCP. Instead, it describes what the definition of NCP is, and which is like observing this natural phenomena. And then it just highlights how the researchers were inspired by the insects and birds that used the NCP, and then they made their own innovation. So this doesn't follow what answer choice A said, and therefore we can eliminate answer choice A. B. It presents a celestial-based method of navigation, enumerates the comparative benefits of an alternative method used by certain animals that is based on an unrelated natural occurrence, and then indicates how researchers assess the relative accuracy of the two methods. This is incorrect because in the text only one method was discussed, which is the NCP, and then the camera they developed. No two methods were discussed, and certainly they did not discuss the relative accuracy of these two methods, so therefore we can eliminate answer choice B. C. It explains how the NCP is typically located, emphasizes a key difference between how humans and certain animals use the NCP for navigation, and then suggests an alternative way of using the NCP to improve existing navigational instruments. This is incorrect because although it sort of does begin with how the NCP is typically located at nighttime, it doesn't emphasize a key difference between how humans and certain animals use the NCP for navigation. Instead, the text highlights how researchers were inspired by the navigational strategies of some insects and birds. So they're not comparing the differences between how humans and certain animals use the NCP. So with that, we can eliminate option choice C. D. It notes an obstacle to observing an astronomical phenomena, mentions a navigation ability of certain animals that inspired a solution to that obstacle, and then it explains how researchers used an optical device to mimic that ability. So this is the correct answer because this properly reflects the overall structure of the text, where the structure of the text begins with noting the astronomical phenomena, the NCP, and then it highlights how the researchers were inspired by insects and birds, and that through that inspiration, they helped develop a device that uses the ability of that insects and birds. So therefore, the correct answer is D.